Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Marissa Kozlov, and it is great to have you with us for today's eMarketer Tech Talk, where we host guests from all areas of media, ad tech, and MarTech. Today, we're talking about how to use connected TV to optimize your advertising strategy, and I am really looking forward to this. But first, let me introduce you to Tim Edmondson, Senior Director of Content and Research at MNTN. Tim, so nice to see you.
Oh, likewise, Marissa. It's fantastic to be here today.
I'm happy to have you here. And actually, should I say have you back, as you've been on our show before. So really looking forward to all that you have in store for us today. And, with that, I also want to remind our audience to please keep it conversational with us. If you have any questions for Tim, just use the chat window on the right side of the screen at any time to submit questions, and we will do our best to get to as many as possible. So please keep them coming. As promised, we have some great content planned for you today. Tim, passing it to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Super excited to dive into our topic at hand. You can see on the screen there, we're going to be talking about 2024, which is absurd because it's already November 8th, you guys. Where has the year gone? Who's to say? But you know what that means. We're looking forward to 2024. We're going to dive into what we expect to see out there in the CTV media landscape. As you can clearly tell, I'm your presenter. I'm Tim Edmondson. It's very nice to meet you all. A little bit about myself. I've been working with MNTN for just about 8 years, which has been an absolute pleasure. And it's given me, I think, a unique perspective when it comes to connected TV, the rise of streaming television, specifically the advertising component. Have watched every ad tier available come online. The ad tech continue to be enhanced and iterated upon. And it's just been a front row seat. It's been a fascinating journey. And I've learned a few things here and there along the way. And I'm going to share some of that with you all today. So let's dive into today's agenda. What are we going to be talking about? Some trends that we want to zero in on. If you had 100 guesses to figure out if AI was in this presentation, you should just guess 100 times it would be, and you'd be right, because it is a huge story. You cannot go very far in the ad world without some discussion of artificial intelligence. So we're going to be touching on that a bit today. The fragmentation in the CTV landscape, that's an interesting one. It's really kind of changing how marketers are approaching television advertising. You have this massive audience out there that's kind of bucketed into different streaming services. It's not that linear TV experience anymore, where you have this giant mass audience all in one place, more or less. So we're going to dive into what that means. We're going to take a quick look at ad spend and how that's shifting around. We're going to touch on some attribution model information, trends that are leading the way there. And then we'll touch on what data can do for campaigns in 2024, what we expect to see when it comes to some changes there. So very excited to dive in. With that, let's dive in. Let's start it off with AI. So yeah, story of the year, for sure. Go to any web page out there on the internet right now, Control F, put in AI. You're going to find those two letters sitting next to each other, and with good reason, especially if you're in the ad world. So you can see in these metrics, these charts here, that advertising and marketing has really led the charge when it comes to looking into AI as a tool that can enhance what we all do. It's even beating out technology, which is surprising. But advertising and marketing has a lot of tech too, so I guess that makes sense. The vast majority of marketers are using some form of generative AI in their day-to-day. So if you don't, look to the left, look to the right, virtually speaking, those three other people next to you are. So it's not a great feeling. Probably a good idea to start looking into at least what AI can do for you when it comes to your process, your day-to-day workflow. Speaking of which, how are marketers using it? So, start with using AI, great start. What are you going to use it for? Well, your peers are really focusing in on that creative process, the content creation aspect, copywriting, storyboarding as well, just an inspiration for ideas. AI, it's a controversial topic because there's a lot of unknowns tied to what its net result is going to be on, jobs and the economy and all that fun stuff. I think one of the things that is important to keep in mind is that it is a tool at the end of the day, and it is in its infancy as well. And so I think one of the things to really focus on, the data is showing that people are doing this now, but as we look towards the new year, should really be looking for ways to integrate it into what you do and use it as a tool. If you are, say, a carpenter, you're going to be a lot better with woodworking tools than I would be. I would be awful. Conversely, if you are a marketer or an advertiser, you have the subject matter expertise to be able to use AI to get the most out of it for your purposes, right? It's a tool. So it's something that can streamline your day-to-day. It can be useful for writer's block. That's a big deal. So as we move into 2024, the future, highly recommend getting into that AI spirit, because it's not going anywhere. We're going to be seeing a lot more of it. Technology moves fast. We've already seen so many headlines this year. There's a lot of room, I think, before the sizzle kind of wears off the artificial intelligence conversation, because it's iterating so quickly. And so, yeah, I think to the surprise of no one, AI is going to be a massive trend. And it really comes down to how you use it, applying it to what you do, finding its best use cases, and sticking with it and finding a way to work with it, because it's going to make a big difference. All right, so that's AI. Here's another one that I think is an interesting conversation, because it runs deep. I think one of these things about streaming television, its rise, which is kind of fun in regard to working the ad world tied to it, is that this is something that affects everyone. Everyone has an experience with streaming TV in some way, or at least maybe like 4/5 of the country, some incredibly high percentage regularly watches connected TV, regularly watches streaming television. And so with that, it's been a bit of a land grab is not the right terminology, but a lot of publishers, TV networks, there has been a massive amount of new services that have come online, and they're all competing for viewership, right? Like, this is, again, we're early in CTV's life cycle, realistically. And so all of these publishers putting out services, trying to claim as much viewership as possible, lock in those subscribers, create a sticky environment. That's what we've seen over the past year or so, or 2 years, 3 years, et cetera. It's been a recent phenomenon, but it's been going on for a little bit. So with that, you actually can fragment it even more, because now we have ad-supported tiers as well. Case in point, Netflix. You used to have a Netflix audience. To advertisers, didn't matter much because you couldn't really reach them via traditional means. But now, in this ad-supported environment, Netflix has technically two audiences, one which can be reached by advertisers, the other which is still on the subscription model. And so that further fragments this ecosystem, which, if you're a marketer, can be tough to try to reach all of these folks. There's a lot of walled gardens. There's just a lot of hoops to jump through to get a hold of people while they watch television. And so linear TV, where it was always kind of a broad awareness reach play, that when it comes to streaming, you can do it, but it's going to be tougher, because you're going to have to manage a lot of direct deals. You're going to work with a lot of partners, et cetera, et cetera. Can't just set it really and forget it. And so that's changing, I think, the approach marketers will have to take to television advertising as a whole. Right here, you have a quote from Andrew LaFawn. I think it sums it up perfectly. We are in this promised land where you can reach people as they watch television, specific audiences. You can measure the results. It's this fantastic opportunity, but it's just hugely fragmented. And it's difficult. So in a way, it's a little bit like a poison chalice. It's like, great, I've got it, but it's got a lot going with it. How do I handle that? And there's a lot of, going back to how it's been fragmented into the ad tier system, further fragmentation. These stats bear that out. It's good news for advertisers, though. 73% of viewers prefer ad-supported content that either lowers or eliminates subscription fees, which obviously, right? It's a fair trade. It's seen as a fair trade. It always kind of has been, even in linear TV days. If you're watching television and you're seeing an ad break, that's what's paying for you to see that on broadcast. Cable, different story, but we won't get into that. When it comes to streaming ad-supported content, though, you've seen a very stark rise in FASTs. It's free ad-supported television. Those are a huge growing sector of the connected TV market. And that has in part led to a drop a bit in the subscription-based viewing. And that's just because there's a ton of options now. If you are subscribing to one CTV network, one streaming network, you're missing out on a lot of content that's out there because it is scattered across the landscape. You have so many different players in the space. And with more affordable ad tier options, consumers are naturally going to gravitate towards those. They want to watch those shows. They want to take the option where it's not going to break the bank. You start adding up subscription services. This is my personal challenge right now that I'm trying to overcome. It adds up. It's a lot of money. Back when we were first getting into this streaming revolution, one of the huge motivators was the fact that it was far more affordable than having a cable subscription. And so you're seeing people finding ways to still save money, still adhere to that ethos of avoiding cable, getting a better deal to watch television and enjoy themselves. And so all of this kind of brings us to, and I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier when we were running through those stats, the fact that TV advertising is changing. And traditionally, it's been this way for decades. It's been an upper awareness funnel or upper funnel awareness play. The fragmented landscape makes that a little difficult. It's possible, but it's difficult. On the other hand, if you have CTV as a digital channel, and you have all the digital capabilities that come with that. So you have this perfect storm of a TV ad unit, a TV commercial, which are prestigious. Those are amazing, impactful. People remember them. There are top 10 lists of those at the end of the year. You have that as the point of contact with your target audience. And then on the back end, you have advanced audience targeting. You can measure the performance of those ads. You can actually tie outcomes. Someone sees that ad and visits your website and buys something, you can actually track that. You can attribute that sale to your TV ad. That's crazy. That's amazing. That's what connected TV allows you to do. And so that is the makings of a performance channel, very similar to paid search, similar to paid social. So as we continue to move into an ever more fragmented space, it's very important to be able to find a way to reach those audiences. And this is something, speaking from Mountain's perspective, our platform, we do ad software for connected TV advertising. We do this audience first approach where you have, last count, I think over 150 premium streaming networks and apps that you're able to access inventory to. So you have a fragmented audience across all of these spaces. That includes like your Peacocks, ESPN, ABC, Fox, et cetera, these premium household names that you associate with TV. The targeting technology allows you to follow those viewers as they jump from service to service. It helps to mitigate the impact of fragmentation. You're able to connect with your audience versus trying to park your content, or I'm sorry, your ads on specific content somewhere. So an audience first approach, hugely helpful when it comes to dealing with fragmentation in the connected TV space. Highly recommend it. And yeah, I think we'll see more of that as marketers continue to dedicate more budget to this ad channel, but want to find the most effective way of reaching the consumers that matter to them most. So that was a fantastic segue, if I do say myself. We're talking about ad spend. So interesting thing with 2023, the ad spend to engagement rate when it comes to connected TV, it comes to streaming TV viewership, is off. There is a gap between the amount of budget that is being dedicated, which is increasing every day. Estimates are revised all the time. It's always up and to the right on the charts when it comes to ad spend. But it's still not keeping pace with the amount of viewership that connected TV is drawing in. So that, nature despises a vacuum, right? So we're going to see more ad spend shifting into this ad channel. I think it's just destiny at this point as TV advertising continues to become, CTV continues to become the dominant way people watch television, which has happened very recently. I think last year or earlier this year, connected TV viewership exceeded linear TV viewership for the first time. I think that's per Nielsen. That's big. And so you're going to see that ad spend really catch up when it comes to finding those folks who are now streaming TV full time. And so, yeah, you're going to see this here. You see the trend moving along. It's becoming a bigger focus for folks who want to engage users on a television screen, or video advertisers that maybe have been into to social, like using that as a video channel. That connected TV is now becoming more and more of a alluring and viable ad channel to help them hit whatever the marketing goals they have. And so, we have continued events happening in the industry overall. On the slide here, we flagged that Amazon is launching more ad supported options. They're going to have a ton more inventory. That is going to see ad spend increase just because there is more lucrative inventory available for marketers to soak up. Excuse me. And obviously with Netflix, they are roughly, coming up on a year or so, maybe already, where they launched their ad supported tier, the one streaming service that was proudly anti-ad, or at least never would have had them. Now a year into that, they have a ton of potential. They have a ton of growth opportunity, and it's going to be something where you're going to see budget continue to move there because they just have so many engaged viewers. And their ad tier, last I had checked, has exceeded their internal expectations. I want to say it's close to 15 million subscribers now. They started, I think, off with 3 million. So people are being drawn to that. And so you're going to see spend in CTV continue to increase. And so, if you aren't planning on doing that, you probably should, because everyone else is, and you don't want to get left behind. You want to be cool like everyone else. Increase your ad spend on CTV. All right. So one of the next things we want to touch on is the attribution conversation when it comes to connected TV. So I made mention that it's almost like science fiction, where you can serve an ad on TV and then you can see the outcome that results. How does that happen? Well, that's through an attribution system. And this has been one of the areas where there's a little bit of a conversation going, where it can get a little hazy. There's some debate about, what is the best way to attribute performance? How should you be measuring? And this is continuing to play out through thought leadership pieces that you see in the trades, theory, enterprises that are putting out plans to unify certain measurement. It's a very active conversation. And I think 2023 kind of, if you're going to take a takeaway from this year, is that there's still work to be done in terms of educating everyone in the industry, garnering a consensus. It's a lot to go on. And in some of our other research that we've done at Mountain, our surveys of marketers, et cetera, has shown that measurement and attribution actually is a little bit of a pain point when it comes to connected TV advertising. And that, I think, that's a growing pain. Not every ad solution is the same, which is a problem in itself. You don't have the same attribution methodologies nor measurement capabilities. It's just kind of a grab bag at this point. And so that's led to a little bit of frustration. Is that a harsh word? Maybe not, but it's definitely tempered folks' expectations when it comes to, am I going to be able to measure my campaigns effectively? So this is something we care a lot about at Mountain. And we have a quote from our VP of engineering, Richard, here. We've we have taken an approach when it comes to connected TV advertising to lean into that digital backbone, to lean into that ability to generate performance. And there are attribution models out there now that have been working for performance marketing for some time. And it's the way that we're seeing it is basically you take those learnings, you take what works, apply that to that TV space. Obviously, you adapt it as you should, but you're going to get a very effective, established way of collecting information when it comes to website visits, conversions, and being able to tie that back to your campaign. And so in 2024, I think, this debate is going to continue for sure. But I think the education, just as time is something that allows folks to learn more. Time's going to pass in the new year. That's what it does. There's no stopping that. You're going to see folks being more educated. That debate's going to continue to move on. And I really do believe that the attribution models, something like, for example, Mountain uses something we call verified visits, just like the very elevator level description of it is you serve an ad, someone sees it, when they see it. If they visit your website afterwards within a visit window that's defined by the advertiser, take credit for that, which sounds like cool, but what if they engage with some other media source? Or is that going to be clean data? Yes. So verified visits also verifies, hence the name, traffic sources to make sure that there was no other engagement with another media source. If they click through an email or a social ad, that eliminates it from the Mountain from taking credit. So it's that level of, you just can't have one thing where it's like, oh, it's going to measure everything. You serve the ad and everything that comes after, we're going to measure that. That's not going to result in clean data. You're running a lot of other channels. So you need something that's going to be sophisticated enough to be able to pull that information out. So you get a clean understanding of how connected TV works. That's working for you, which is fantastic because then you can use that information to iterate on your campaign, work on your targeting, maybe adjust creative messaging, etc. There's a lot of learnings when you have clean data for your campaign. So I think that's going to be big. And as more folks gravitate towards connected TV for performance, it's going to be a bigger and bigger call for reliable attribution. All right. So looking back into 2023, we're getting into our next trend here, folks. So we have a lot of, so Mountain as an organization, we work with a lot of different advertisers. And with that, we get a lot of information that goes along with that. What I mean by that is, advertisers who launch campaigns, they're able to track all of those outcomes that I've been talking about. I won't repeat them. I might later. That's out of habit. I apologize in advance. But if they are able to measure all of that, we have insight into that too. And so one of the things we really like to do, as again, connected TV continues to evolve, to see what successful advertisers are doing, what advertisers are bringing to the table with their strategies. And then we can take that information, figure out what's the commonalities when it comes to like the all-stars of CTV advertising, and recommend that as a best practice. And this is, heck, what we're going to do right in this second. So our first party data shows that, advertisers who are always on when it comes to connected TV, they always have that presence. Where, even though, traditionally TV ads, they've been flighted, but with paid social, paid search, generally have those channels running 24/7. You tell someone in marketing to, hey, can we shut those off? They're going to have a lot of follow-up questions. The same should apply to connected TV. It is an effective performance channel. It's that third performance channel. And so you see that if someone's leaving campaigns on, they're going to be top of mind. That's huge. They also are able to address both the upper funnel and the lower funnel, leaning into CTV strengths. Upper funnel, that historical strength of TV to be a fantastic awareness play, high impact creative, but lower funnel as well to convince folks to come back to your website and convert, make a purchase, become a lifelong loyal customer. And you can see the stats there of what a combined strategy when you're addressing the full funnel, what that can do for your results. So if you make a foray into CTV, if you're newer to it, or you have an established strategy, but it's only at that upper funnel, that is a linear TV mindset. And there's no, no fault doing that. That's because it's effective. But there's so much more value you can extract from this ad channel. If you're addressing folks who have visited your website through like a retargeting campaign, that lower funnel effort, you're uploading your CRM data to put in emails, get your match rate, start serving to those folks who are current customers who have a very high lifetime value. Should be doing that. It's a big deal. And the data proves that out. So another thing from that first party research that we have done is the ad unit, the creative itself. So one thing I think we all relate to is if you are watching streaming ad-supported TV, there might be an ad you see once or twice or 3 or 4 1,000 times. It's not great. That's ad fatigue. When you get to that point where you're rolling your eyes when a commercial comes on because you've seen it, however many times it was enough to evoke that response, that's a problem. And that's called ad fatigue. You don't want that happening to your ads. Not a good experience for the user, right? And so one way to soften that is creative variations. Putting out different ads that have slight tweaks, adjustments to a call to action at the end, different edit, different focus on the footage that you're using. It makes a big difference. You see that in the stats there. Brands with 3 or more creative units outperform those who just use the one. So that might sound expensive. That might sound rough because producing one TV ad, that can be a lot, but it's not as intimidating as you would think. And the reason is that very subtle changes, those things I had listed at the beginning, where it's like shifting the order of some scenes, putting an emphasis on one element of the ad. You make those very small changes and it can pay off. And so it doesn't have to be this daunting thing. You can work with, if you already have a video agency, that's something that can be done. If you don't, or you're looking for a way to scale your video production, there are video marketplaces that you can tap into. This is going to be a shameful plug, so I'm going to preface that, but QuickFrame by Mountain, that is an option. It is a video marketplace, and it allows advertisers to have just a very effective, high quality, quick, it's in the name, QuickFrame, option to produce more creative, to really lean into the CTV opportunity. And so transitioning to this next slide here, that's going to be something I think is going to be big in 2024. Nobody wants ad fatigue. Nobody wants that negative response. They also want to be able to reach more consumers. And with that, what I mean by that is, connected TV has very strong targeting capabilities. And you can create an ad, and then if, let's say, you want to target it to Gen Z, you put out one version for that. Similarly, if you want to target, an older demographic, make a tweak, serve that ad out. So, that's just a very basic example. Think about it through the lens of what you offer and who are your audiences. Those are broad strokes that I just used as examples, but it can be focused. We've worked with advertisers who literally have an audience that loves to go outdoors and an audience that loves to think about going outdoors. But they served those two with separate, slightly different ads, and it paid off. There was big payoff for that. So yeah, just think about what you can do. And if you have evergreen presence on connected TV, you're going to need these ads so you don't wear folks out. And the value you get from solving for this is worth it. It's definitely worth the endeavor to create that creative pipeline. It's easier than ever. There are entire businesses set up for this specific situation. So lean into that, tap into that. It's a big deal. So you guys, we're at the end. We're at our key takeaways. I hope you enjoyed the journey as much as I did. So this is a summary. Take a screenshot if you want to. It sums it up pretty well. We'll also, I think, be sending this recording as well, but I'll do a very quick run through. We covered AI and how that is currently affecting things, and how, really the takeaway there, get on it, find new ways to add it to your workflows, start taking advantage of a new tool that is very much in its infancy. If you're going to learn, if there was ever a time to learn, it's now. Fragmentation, it's a challenge, but there are ways to overcome it. I think it's a fascinating subject when it comes to the evolution of streaming. I'm curious to see where it goes from here. If we're going to see consolidation in the next few years, or further fragmentation, time will tell. Ad spend, we covered that. Connected TV is a fast-growing ad channel. Everyone else is spending. You should be cool to spend there as well. Note that. Attribution, it's a continued conversation, but as advertiser needs start to really form around it being a performance opportunity, I think we're going to start to see a lot of agreement and adoption of attribution models that work for those purposes. And then lastly, that campaign strategy when it comes to creative, having those creative variations, it's a big deal. You're going to want that in 2024. Start to work on the infrastructure now. I know it's Q4. I know for a lot of folks on this call, it's a very hectic time. But once you reach that sweet, slow period, like this is where you should be focusing. Start to think on this, because there's massive opportunity waiting for you in the new year if you get that right. And I believe with that, that's all I've got. I want to say that we've probably had some questions come through, so I'm going to kick it back over to Marissa.
Thank you so much, Tim. And I think you probably have a little bit more for our audience, because we've had a really engaged audience and a number of questions that have come in. So first, I just want to say thank you. That was such a great presentation. Thank you for sharing really all that you've seen this year and what you expect for 2024. I think for me, at least, the presentation really highlighted how much you anticipate to be different in such a short period of time. So I'm really looking forward to some of those trends and tracking those that you are predicting for 2024, and focusing around those key elements of performance, attention, attribution, creative. So thank you again. And let's get to the Q&A. All right, Tim. So the first one that came from our audience: besides AI, are there other technological advances that you are expecting in 2024?
Yeah, definitely. I think when it comes to, we'll narrow the scope to advertising, obviously, and to connected TV. I think there's going to be a lot of focus, and you're seeing it now, that we're essentially starting to enter this more mature phase when it comes to the ad tech side of connected TV. If you want a big headline that kind of kicks this off, or is at least like a waypoint in this journey when it comes to maturing the tech that supports this ad channel, Netflix just recently announced that there was more enhancements that they're launching to their ad offering. Includes ad units that, or rather a system where people who binge content, they binge, I think it was 3 shows in a row. The 4th show is ad free if they're on that ad tier, which I think is pretty clever. It's like a club card if you're at a sandwich shop, get that free sandwich at the end once you've eaten enough of them. But I think that is an indicator of what we're going to see in the new year. There are, like I said, it's a fragmented space. There are a ton of very interested parties out there developing ad tech to meet advertisers' needs when it comes to connected TV. And so in a way, it's this giant laboratory of all these competing interests that are going to start putting out some really cool stuff. And I think Mountain's no exception. We have been hard at work putting together some really cool things. Won't get into detail, but it's a fantastic. I think what you're going to see coming from us in the very near future is an indicator of some really cool things, really cool opportunities that are going to enhance connected TV from the technology side. So I think, yeah, you're going to see new ad units. You're going to see in when it comes to the streaming networks, you're going to see better ad delivery, targeting, optimization, everything. Yeah.
All right. Well, we look forward to following those. That sounds great. I like your analogy of the punch card too.
Thank you.
So in speaking about some things that your team is working on at Mountain, our next viewer asks, how has AI played a role with your team? Do you plan to integrate AI into your workflow for next year?
Right on. Yeah, I think it definitely has, for sure. You saw those stats at the top of the presentation. 73%, I think, are using AI now. And from where I sit, for our marketing operations, when it comes to content, et cetera. Yeah, we use it as a tool to inspire. I can speak personally from my own experience. So this isn't going to sound great, but this is my anecdote. To write an article, I punched in some prompts into an unnamed AI generator, and it produced something. And I read through it. And I was like, nah, I can do better. But it was that starting point, which is so crucial. And in a way, it kind of showed me where I wanted to go with the piece by showing me where not to go. So in a strange way, even though like if my goal was like, I want this AI generated article, I don't want to touch a key and let the robots do it, which you should not do, by the way. If that was what I was looking for, I'd be disappointed, but I was still able to extract value, and it did not take much time at all. So yeah, this is something that our team has been using. I recommend you guys dive into it. Just start playing around with it when you have some free time. Just put it through its paces, ask it questions that are relevant to what you do. So yeah, I think, and then just on our platform side, we have machine learning optimizations automated. So it's relying on those automated decisions that are happening thousands of times a day, hundreds of thousands of times a day. So AI is, in conclusion, AI is everywhere when it comes to marketing.
Well, it's good to know how you're using it within your own team and your own company. Tim, so I have a few questions for you. I believe that really speaks to your fourth trend, which I think was the creative trend. Some questions on different ad units and creative. So the first one is, have you seen an increase in shoppable ads from brands? And also, what types of success have you seen from shoppable ads?
It's a great question. So I think, yeah, I always think back to, the engagement from that Super Bowl ad where they just had the QR code bouncing around. And that I think was such a high profile moment where you have this ad that, through its very presence, someone can pull out their phone and then go exactly to the destination that the advertiser wanted that user to go to. And a lot of folks did. So I think shoppable ads in all their forms, you're going to continue to see iteration on that front. You're going to find ways where publishers or tech solutions are going to find novel ways of breaking down that transition from seeing the ad to the user taking action. I think personally, with anyone who wants to use those should, because it's another way, it's another tool in the bag that you can apply. I think a lot of marketers have long sales cycles, and so don't get too discouraged if your ad immediately doesn't generate a visit or a conversion. This can be a long paced game. So, I think that's why it's important to have solid attribution, going back to that point, where if someone sees your ad, but it takes them a bit to end up on your site, that you account for that. So yeah, I think shoppable ads are fun. They're going to be unique, and there's a lot of leeway to play around and make them creative. So yeah, we'll see more of those, but it's good to have the basics down as well.
All right, good tips there. And I think they're fun too.
Yeah.
All right, so our next viewer asks about the times where you continue to see the same commercial over and over. So how do you change things in the CTV world to avoid receiving the same commercial over and over again, besides changing the ad from the same advertiser?
Mm-hmm. So I think there's definitely means of controlling that. You often hear things discussed around frequency caps, right? There are manual ways to say, I don't want this ad to serve X amount of times, because I think that's going to be a little bit too much. So there are ways for advertisers to avoid doing that. Another very viable way is, sound like a broken record, but if you take that performance approach and your success is weighed on, did this ad prompt someone to eventually take action, yes or no? And the automated optimization that handles that machine learning driven system, it's optimizing based on that outcome, based on that success. And so annoyed, angry consumers rarely purchase from you. I think that's safe to say. So in another way, if you have very intelligent tech powering a campaign, it's finding that sweet spot when it comes to that frequency, because success depends on it. If it messes that up, then the performance suffers. So a system optimized for that will deliver on that. So there are ways to handle that as an advertiser, as a consumer. I don't know if you guys have tips on avoiding ads that are a little too repetitive, send them my way because I haven't found it yet. But from the advertiser side, it's solvable.
All right, thank you for that. So speaking of campaigns, our next viewer says that they are already running a seasonal campaign. What do you think? Should they wait until the new year to start an evergreen campaign, or should they start whenever their video assets are ready?
Oh yeah, start now. Just start now, you guys. It's a great question. And it's one of those things where they say the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. Second best time is to plant it right now, right? Apply that to your advertising strategy. And by that, I mean, getting started on connected TV, if you want to have that evergreen presence, we saw those stats earlier, it matters. And even with the holidays, we have data that shows that if you have that evergreen campaign running into the holidays, most people purchase, especially this year. I think research just came out that showed the vast majority of, well, not the vast majority, but the majority of spending for consumers is going to take place in November, which Black Friday, Cyber Monday, all that makes perfect sense, right? So when you get to that point, you don't want to be 2 weeks into a campaign and that's your only touch point. That was the only time you were engaging those consumers on connected TV, because you are basically entering the fray while it is the most packed it's going to be all year. That's tough, right? You don't want to do that. But having that ad presence when you're targeting specific audiences that matter to you, that will engage with your brand and convert when the time is right, i.e. Black Friday, the holiday shopping season when people are converting left and right, you're going to want to be in that consideration set. And that's what that evergreen campaign provides. And that goes across the board. We all, on our calendars, we have major events when it comes to our ad strategies or our marketing pushes that are tied to seasonal events all year long. And it kind of depends on what industry you're in, your brand, et cetera. But you have these kind of tentpole moments throughout the year. You don't want to have to restart every time. You don't want to have to climb your way back up someone's consideration set when it comes time to buy. You want to have the evergreen presence. You're basically getting a head start. So yeah, launch that as soon as you can, because you're going to be reaping the benefits all year.
Yeah, might be good to mix up the messaging at that time as well with that new creative.
100%. Yeah, definitely. That's the beauty.
Well, from your perspective, what are the alternatives to evergreen or seasonal campaigns?
In terms of alternatives, I think that that covers the ground of what you would want to put out there, right? So if you have a consistent brand message that, especially when you're introducing yourself to new audiences, where it's like, okay, as marketers, we all know we have that very top level statement about if you have 5 seconds with somebody, what do you want them to understand about your brand? Those evergreen campaigns are perfect for that because it allows you to introduce yourself. And then in the seasonal side, you are able to adjust that message to be tied to a specific sale or something that you want to draw attention to. Maybe there's a different value prop you want to talk up for your seasonal campaigns. That's an option too. So I think in terms of alternative, when it comes to connected TV, I would say it's the choice is like, oh, do I do one or the other, or do I do both? You just do both for sure. Otherwise, you're leaving money on the table.
Okay. Tim, we're going to take one more question today. What types of creative tips can you share with our audience for them to consider when they develop their CTV creatives?
Yeah. Make it fun, make it entertaining, obviously. You want to engage your audience, and that's what TV is fantastic for. So lean into the creative leeway you have when it comes to TV. Speaking from experience where what we've seen for our advertisers, again, we've gone back into our data. This is something that we've looked into in the past. We did include it in this presentation, but I think it definitely applies to this to answer this question. If you are trying to use a TV commercial as an ad unit to prompt action, like if you're doing this on a digital channel, you want to put a CTA in there, right? Best practice, make sure CTA is there. There are other best practices for connected TV ads as well that borrow from the digital experience. So, if going back to the 5 seconds to tell somebody about your brand, you're going to want to make sure that the most important information is available your URL, right? Your brand, your logo. Having your URL in an ad combined with a call to action. You're telling somebody what to do and where to go after they see your ad. That's super beneficial. I don't have the exact stats, but ads that included those best practices, which was have a CTA, have a URL, have your logo, generated better site visits and just better performance than those that did not. So there is this science behind the art when it comes to connected TV, creating ads where, with these small adjustments, they can have outsized impact. So yeah, again, CTA, URL, logo, tell people where to go, what to do. You include that in your ad and you're going to be set up for success.
All right, great tips to round out our time here today. Thank you so much to our audience, first and foremost, for submitting all of those questions in the chat and engaging with us. And Tim, a huge thank you to you for all of the great content that you shared with us and for answering all of the audience questions. It was so good to have you with us today.
My pleasure. This was great.
So before we wrap up, I'm just going to take a moment to tell you what's happening across eMarketer's media channels. You can register for more live analyst and Tech Talk webinars on our events page at eMarketer.com/events. On the audio side, don't forget to tune into Behind the Numbers, which is eMarketer's daily podcast. And finally, check out our various newsletters. Keep an eye on your email for the link to today's recording. And thank you all again for your time. Thanks to Tim, the team at Mountain, and our Studio II crew, which is our production team behind the scenes, for making this webinar possible today. We'll see you all on the next Tech Talk.